So. Banlist predictions. It's around this time we've had a couple of our major events. The first two, we had the European Championships. We've also had some regionals in other places that are more like high level as well. First time we've had these for the new sets. So hopefully that means a Banlist is coming soon that will help address any of the problems we have in the current sort of set, in our current sort of rotation we've got going on right now. Our format is what I really want to say. Genius. I wanted to say format. And then moving forward, we'll see how that affects the rest of the game. So, what were our expectations of the format going into it? First of all, what were we thinking was going to actually happen? Obviously, everyone thought Sprite and Pendulum were going to be the top two. They think they were going to be the best decks by like a mile, and it wasn't even going to be close. Generally, that's what people thought. They also thought there was not really going to be much rogue viability outside of Mathmech and Exosister. Mathmech had some sort of play going like beforehand. There was a lot of people having a lot of success with Mathmech against the top two decks. The matchup just seemed to work, and a lot of people were coping very hard on Exosister. They called it the evil swarm of this new sort of dragon ruler-esque meta. No. It simply was not. It could not compete. It cannot seem to compete. The matchup isn't as good as people say it is. Or as people thought it was originally. The matchup is actually pretty bad, in fact. There end up being a lot more decks that had a lot more sort of power and potential than Exosister ended up having. Thirdly, hand traps are not so good. And board breakers are way better. Yeah, so the top two decks, as I was saying, they can play through hand traps like it's nothing, pretty much. Interrupting one play doesn't really do much against them because they can do a lot of plays per turn, and they're not all entirely reliant on each other. As well as for tier, a lot of the hand traps, of course, won't affect tier monsters that are already in the graveyard. It just doesn't really work. Then, finally, out of the top two decks, Sprite was considered to be the better one. People thought Sprite would be nearly tier 0, and Tier Element would sort of be bringing up the back. Well, we'll see how that turned out on my fun next slide. Here's what the first competitions have actually taught us. Tier might actually be the best deck. Sprite is doing very well, as expected. But Tier is doing a lot better. It seems to be a lot varied. It seems to have the edge on Sprite when it comes to drawn-out games. And in general, the Sprite end board doesn't seem to be as oppressive as people initially believed it would be. This also could be because in these events, people have sort of metagamed so hard to bring Sprite hate into their main and side decks that Sprite kind of never stood a chance from the beginning. Yeah, Sprite players also love to play into Nibiru. They did that every single time. It's a bit rough, but that's what it happens. In the EU Championship, on pretty much all of the games that Sprite played, like all the feature games that Sprite played, they played into Nibiru every single time. It was great. Didn't work out well for them. Rogue decks were a lot better than we thought they would be. Rogue decks are actually pretty good. In general, they seem pretty good. Turns out that a format where hand traps are not used because they're so weak, a lot of the rogue decks, which are pretty strong but fold easily to hand trap interruption, end up getting a lot better when there's less hand trap interruption. On top of that, quite a few ended up having surprisingly okay matchups against some of the stronger decks. You can't see it, but yeah, Exo Sister was kind of cope. It's not very good. It's just straight up not good. It wasn't strong at all. It has no actual like showings whatsoever. It ended up accomplishing pretty much nothing actually. And also Rika Plants. This was like the surprise breakout. People weren't expecting it to be so good because it hasn't been good for like a while. It's been okay, but it hasn't been like amazing. But turns out with its new support, it works so perfectly and interacts so perfectly with the other best decks that like, you know, it's actually really, 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 really good. It won the European Championship. So that goes to show how effective it can be in the hands of like a player that knows what they're doing. Also, I think everyone noticed, and it's probably one of the things that people were like complaining the most about, is spell and trap stalling is very strong as well, especially Mystic Mine. This is because spells and traps are not being sort of main decked against. Instead, people are spending all their like space going for board breaking cards, which affect monsters, not spell traps, which means Mystic Mine and things like that are always going to be good. Oops. Okay, now, for the actual Bandless stuff. The first card that I think is going to get hit is Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler is crazy. It's always been so strong. Chaos Ruler has been strong since like release, and just gets stronger like every single set. And it blends too perfectly with Tier Element. It's basically just another tier card, right? You use this, you plus 10 million with tier, then you can recur it like immediately for like link plays and stuff like that as well. It's just crazy. Yeah, there you go. Whoa. Easily recurring material for other plays is what that says. I blocked it with my body, but you could see, you could tell. Yeah, and honestly, limiting this, I wouldn't do anything. I know a lot of people would prefer to see this card just gone, and I feel like that's the only way. You have to either have it limited to one or banned, and limited to one I don't think accomplishes anything at all. The next card is Toad. So Totally Awesome was a card that everyone thought was going to be like the shit. It still is extremely good. It protects sprites. This is one thing that really fucks people up, is it could steal a lot of board breaking cards, basically meaning you're wasting your cards, wasting your plays to deal with it. And then if you manage to not kill the opponent on your first turn, you then get killed because your opponent's got a free board breaker in their back row. And Sprite can make use of it multiple times. They can bring it back. It's not a hard once per turn. So it's kind of crazy. It works just too well in Sprite. And limiting it, yeah, wouldn't accomplish much of anything. It would have to be like banned outright to see anything, really. Because like, they're bringing back the same copy multiple times, not going into new copies, right? So if it's going to be hit, it needs to be banned. But at the same time, Sprite hasn't been as dominant as we thought it would be, so it might be okay just staying. Next one, everyone's favorite card, Mystic Mine. So Mystic Mine is ridiculous, and has continued to be ridiculous. It's incredibly strong in this format, probably stronger than it's ever been, actually. Because people are running monster-beating cards. People are running Lava Golems, people are running Dark Ruler No More, people are running Forbidden Droplet. None of those cards do anything to beat Mystic Mine. And if you haven't got back row removal, if a player Mystic Mines you, that's basically the end of the game. You've lost. Also, as shown in the European Championships, comboing it with Beat Cop is horrific. It's really, really, really horrible. No one wants your rare piece of spell trap removal to be completely nullified by Beat Cop. But the other thing is, because it's a format that's so powerful, it could be seen as a necessary evil. It's very searchable. Terraforming, the trap card that I've forgotten the name of, the meta thing, also can search it very easily. So in general, yeah, it's just pretty damn good. But I also think it's not actually getting banned, mainly because, like, as a necessary evil, and it's so searchable, like, I don't think Konami want to get rid of it, but at the same time, I feel like it should be limited. I think that it's fine to run one, but I think if your opponent deals with it, they shouldn't have to deal with any more. I think that's how it should be. If you can deal with one Mystic Mine, that's the end of Mystic Mine for the game. You've gotten through it, you know? Now, this is a weird one. This is weird. I don't want to see this hit, but Danger Nessie. This is being played in a majority of tier lists, all the strongest tier lists. I love Dangers, I love Nessie. I don't want to see it hit, but right now, it's a very strong card in probably the best deck in the game. Because it's a draw plus special summon possibly, plus if you dump a tier, you're plussing to like infinity as well. It's absolutely crazy when it goes off properly in tier specifically. Another issue with this card is it can seem saggy. Like, a lot of people don't enjoy that it's random, like the discard is random, so if it hits just a random discard, it can feel like shit. If it discards like the wrong card, sends tier, then everything goes crazy, they plus to 1 billion, they special summon out this huge guy, it's just nuts. And Konami, now here's my way of putting this to make it make more sense that this could be getting hit. Konami doesn't want to hit tier element cards, like cards with the tier name. I don't think they want to hit because they're so new. Instead, they're going to be hitting the more powerful cards around the strategy. And Danger Nessie is one of them. I don't think they would ban Danger Nessie, and I don't think they will ban any other Dangers. But because Danger Nessie is the only Danger played at 3 in the deck, I think it might be limited or semi-limited. That's my guess. I feel like it's going to be limited or semi-limited. I don't think it's going to be banned, but it's entirely possible that because it is so popular in the strongest deck, that it might just... You don't want to see it so much, I think. Maybe. Now this one. Now this one is everyone's favorite. Ronin Toadin. Super strong in Sprite. It does 1 billion things for the Sprite archetype. It's literally like... There's a reason why the frog version of Sprite is the best version, and it's Ronin Toadin. Just like Tier, though, as well. Just like Danger Nessie, I should have said. Just like Danger Nessie, it's not a name in the deck. So this still keeps the new cards out if they hit this, but also then reduces the annoying and unfair parts of another one of the strongest decks, what's considered like the second strongest deck in the format. A limit or ban, this says, a limit or ban could force Sprite players to adapt more varied playstyles. So, the thing is, Sprite can do a lot of interesting things, and they can mesh with a lot of interesting archetypes in ways that haven't been done before. Unfortunately, because the frog version is way too strong, those other like options aren't really being tested. So I'm hoping that limiting this or banning this could mean, oh, I won't play like Frog Sprite anymore. I'm going to move on to something else. Live Twin or Melfi, for example. Crawler. That's what I really want to see. Crawler. Did you know Crawler Sprite has access to Crawler Soma, which is like the most insane card ever, and it also is able to use El Shaddol Window because of Shaddol Construct, or El Shaddol Construct, the link, whatever it's called, which is pretty nuts. Next card. Eradicated Epidemic Virus. Fuck this. Fuck this card. It's getting very popular in a lot of decks. A lot of decks are sideboarding it or even main decking it. Going first, super easy to have ready. And the main problem with this card is because it's a board breaking meta, this card removes pretty much every single board breaker from like your opponent's hand. If you have this card and you can make it work, flipping this during the opponent's draw phase basically means like no Dark Ruler no more, no Forbidden Droplet, no Lightning Storms, no Feather Dusters, nothing. Like, all they can rely on is what, like Lava Golem to break your board? And a lot of times you need more than one Lava Golem, you know? It's just, in this format in particular, it's just not fun. It's just too good at the only real counterplay people have. It just gets rid of it. So I feel like it has to go. Yeah, and it feels super sacky. It feels so sacky when you actually like get it off, or when it gets played off against you, because it's just like, oh well, unless I have like, you know, 2 Lava Golems in my hand, I guess I've lost this game. I might as well scoop straight away, you know? And I think, honestly, it says banned or limited to 1. Probably just banned. I mean, if it's limited to 1, I don't think people would play it if it's limited to 1, but I think banned is probably just the better option. Now, other possibilities. Beat Cop, specifically because of what happened at the championships. I don't think these cards are really going to get hit, but like they're possibilities. Shadow Imprisoning Mirror is getting super popular. One-sided skill drain is pretty strong. But then again, this is also the counter to the top deck, so I don't think it's actually going to like see anything happen to it. El Shaddol Winda, pretty crazy in general. At the same time though, monster effects on the board because of like Dark Ruler being so popular just isn't as effective right now. Curious. This card is nuts in tier, specifically again. It's Foolish Barrel. It's just a Foolish Barrel that you can get out at any time. Especially when you're running like Dangers. It goes out so easily. And then it's just a Foolish Barrel, which basically just means you starting your tier plays again. So I can see why they would get rid of that. And then Super Poly. Now this one's a bit more iffy. Super Poly is crazy right now because of the new Super Poly target, Garuda. Garuda's brand new, Super Poly isn't brand new. So that's what I think's going to happen. I think if they are going to try and get rid of any part of this Super Poly package, it would be Super Poly itself, and I don't think it would get banned. I don't think any of these cards, with the exception of Curious, would get banned, really. Maybe limited or something like that. But we'll see. Now, Unhits. I have 2 in the same category, which is the Master Duel Unhits. Gazelle and Multi-Faker. So, I think these are both fine to bring back, honestly. They're both strong, but I don't think either deck is going to be doing that well. I know Altergeist did get top 4 in EU championships, but that was mostly off the back of Mystic Mine, not like Multi-Faker. I think Multi-Faker could come back, and I think Gazelle could come back easily as well without making much of a change. Gazelle as well specifically encourages like a lot more sort of oomph and variance in like Cyberse playstyles. And I think it being semi-limited would increase consistency of things without making them unfair. I mean, Salamangreat is still strong, right? I think increasing the consistency wouldn't be a bad thing in the current metagame at all. Then, here's my big one. Here's the one that I think I'm going to get told off for. This is the one in the YouTube comments I'm going to get flamed for. Electromite. I think we could bring Electromite back to 1. Because Pend is best deck. No, but really, it's like the best Pendulum card. Other Pendulum cards have been taken off the list. They've all been coming off. Bit by bit, like drip feeding Pendulum more and more and more and more and more stuff. Right? Yeah, please flame in the chat, thank you. Say some terrible things about my mother in the chat, please. And all the other Pendulum cards that have come off the list have done nothing. Pendulum has made no splashes whatsoever. Pendulum boards just don't work in the current meta as well. Like, the meta is all about breaking boards right now. It doesn't matter how many fancy Pendulum, like, cards you've got going on. If you get hit by Dark Ruler no more, they're just, you know, beat sticks anyway, right? And, like, it's legal in Master Duel, which is far more favorable. Like, the format of Master Duel is far more favorable to Electromite and Pendulum than the current TCG format is. And there is literal 0 meta relevance of Pendulum in that game at all. With a better format, weaker top decks, Pendulums simply aren't doing anything there, and Electromite is legal. I genuinely don't see how this would really make any difference, apart from making Pendulum perhaps a rogue deck that could see a top every now and again, apart from being a deck that does nothing. So, with this in mind, what do I want to see happen from the ban list? I want more variants in top deck builds, so I love Dangers. I love Dangers so much, but I would like to see different things in tier as well. So I want it to be like an actual like decision, like instead of I'm running Dangers because that's the best, I want it to be a decision of do I run Dangers or do I run something else? Same with Sprite. Instead of being frogs are the best in Sprite, should I run Live Twin? Should I run Melfi? Should I run Crawler? You know, stuff like that. So also, rogue decks given more foot room. I think rogue decks are going to be doing a lot better. I think people are going to figure out soon that a lot of the rogue decks that are rogue because they fold so easily to like hand traps, common hand traps of the last format and all the formats sort of before it. Suddenly, I think these rogue decks are going to have a lot more oomph behind them because these hand traps aren't going to be run so much. They're being replaced by Dark Ruler and Forbidden Droplet and stuff like that, which means that their plays are far less likely to be interrupted, which then means they're able to do their powerful but maybe hard to do things a lot more often. So they're going to get stronger. That's just what I think might happen. And I want to see the continued sort of back and forth and a lot of play between the top decks. Tier and Sprite have a lot of very interesting like play that they do together. They're both very strong. Games can go on for a lot of turns. And I think that's a good thing. I don't want to see one deck be made way more powerful than the other, or them to be built in a way that makes it so games are over in like one turn now. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that might be it. Yay! There we go. Well done, everyone. We did it. We got through my PowerPoint presentation.